And what is going on, everybody? Sports Scuba Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Hope everyone had a great spring break. Much needed for a lot of us as we hit the stretch run here of the semester. Much needed break for a lot of us. Thank you again for listening in. If you're listening in, I really appreciate it. A lot to get into, as always, this week on the Sports Scoop. The selection show for college basketball was last night. We have a bracket, and we have the tournament officially beginning Tuesday evening with the first four matchups. Some surprising seed lines. Miami, Ohio gets in the tournament. They're going to be in the first four. Auburn, thankfully, does not. And, St. John's. I'm going to talk about St. John's because they got hosed. They got hosed as a 5 seed. I'm shocked by that. I'm really shocked. I'm going to get into that and a lot more. I'm going to go through because I really haven't gone through the whole bracket. I was doing stuff last night, or the whole day, and then last night I was just exhausted. But I got to take a look at this. But I saw that St. John's was a 5 seed, and that's just unacceptable. So we're going to get into some March Madness. I'm going to talk Pens a little bit. World Baseball Classic I'm going to get into a little bit. That's been a lot of fun. And Steelers. I got to talk about the Steelers and their free agency moves. Some really good moves, I thought, at a time when Omar Khan needed to cook a little bit. I thought he did for the most part in free agency. So, going to start out with March Madness here. So, yeah, St. John's. St. John's is a 5 seed. I'm stunned by this. They're in the same region as UConn. UConn's the 2 seed. St. John's is the 5 seed. Now, St. John's started out the season a little slow, but in Big East play they were dominant. They beat UConn in the regular season. They destroyed them in the conference tournament just a few days ago. They're 28-6. UConn 29-5, and they're 3 lines ahead. And St. John's had head-to-head. I just really don't understand that. I think it's very disrespectful to Rick Pitino, a legend of the game. That's your reward for St. John's. St. John's was a 5 seed going into the Big East tournament. They win the Big East and they don't get bumped up at all. I don't understand at all, especially they got all these Big Ten teams that got high seeds. And here we have St. John's as a 5 seed. That's one of the best 5 seeds you'll find. And they're in the region with Duke. They got Kansas, although I don't think Kansas is an issue for St. John's, honestly. Assuming St. John's wins their first round game, I don't think Kansas would be an issue. But you got Michigan State in there. You got UCLA, who I think is really solid and has been playing better lately. We'll see what their injury situation is because Donovan Dent got hurt against Purdue, and Tyler Bilodeau got hurt before that. So we got to see what the impact there is. And you got UConn in your bracket. So I feel for St. John's and St. John's fans with that. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And going through the rest here, the 1 seeds: Florida, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. No surprises there. Florida, I thought, should still be a 1 seed with how dominant they were in the SEC this season. Rough non-conference for Florida, but they had a lot of new guards on that team that needed some time to gel. But I'm looking here, some compelling matchups. Ohio State, TCU is very compelling. Obviously, I'm going to root for TCU and Jamie Dixon. Ohio State, who lost to Pitt, you can't be beating Jamie Dixon. So that'll be a fun matchup, though. Louisville, South Florida, I think, is an underrated matchup. I would not be surprised if South Florida won that game. South Florida has been playing really, really well. Nobody's talked about the American all season because Memphis is way down. Tulane wasn't what people thought they were going to be, and it just wasn't notable. And the Americans lost a lot of teams, a lot of really good programs recently. Obviously Houston, but also UCF and Cincinnati. So the Americans just a little bit down, but South Florida is a really, really good team that Lenardi said would have been one of the first 4 out if they lost their conference tournament. So they were a borderline tournament team regardless. So that'll be tough for Louisville. And Pat Kelsey's a really good coach, but that'll be something. UCF really struggled to end the season. I don't think I'd be really surprised if UCLA loses that game. Clemson, Iowa, again, that's two teams that are kind of faded at the end of the season. I don't know what to make of that game, honestly. I would probably lean Iowa because they have a go-to scorer in the end, whereas Clemson does not. But these 8-9 games are always compelling. Vanderbilt, McNeese, you always got to watch out for McNeese. I know Will Wade, the coach, isn't there no more, but hey, they were really good again this season. Ran through the Southland Conference. Actually was the 2 seed, but they were the best team, and they showed that in the tournament. So Vanderbilt, they've been playing really well. They're a 5 seed, but don't sleep on McNeese. UNC could be in trouble for sure against VCU. VCU can defend at a high level. They always do. And they're just really good offensively as well. They're a balanced team. And UNC obviously with no Caleb Wilson, that'll be tough for UNC to overcome. But I think at this point I would take UNC, but that could be one of those 11-6 games you'd take a look at. St. Mary's A&M. St. Mary's, it's always in the tournament. I don't trust them. I might have them winning this game against Texas A&M, but as for going very far, I don't think they will. They normally don't. They just rely on balanced scoring. And in this tournament, the NCAA tournament, you need a guy to step up and be your go-to guy when it gets close late. And I just don't. St. Mary's just doesn't really have that. But I would take them against A&M because A&M just really struggled to end the season. And Houston, mighty Houston, we love Houston. I'll probably pick them to win just because I love Houston. I want Kelvin Sampson to win it all before he retires. But it's going to be tough. They're in with Illinois, who's good, Nebraska, and Florida, obviously. Florida's going to be tough. That'd be a rematch if it went all the way to the Elite Eight, Florida versus Houston. Villanova, Utah State. Again, Utah State, they wanted a higher seed than 9. I thought 9 was probably 8 or 9 was probably where they'd be. Villanova has been bad to end the season. They lost to Georgetown in the Big East tournament. They lost one of their leading scorers. I think that's a Utah State game, although the Mountain West, it's been a very mixed bag in the NCAA tournament. Wisconsin, got to watch out for High Point, but I think if Wisconsin can get past High Point, they're a team as a 5 seed to look out for. Arkansas is a 4 seed. If Arkansas and Wisconsin both won their games, they'd face off against each other, and that would be a barn burner game. Those are 2 really good teams that could be even seeded higher, that could make it to the Elite Eight, honestly. Both those teams, I think. Calipari and Malik Thomas and Arkansas are really good. But so is Wisconsin. Wisconsin has that depth like they normally do. They can knock down the 3. You got Miami, Missouri, a 7-10. I think Miami wins that pretty easily, actually. I don't think Missouri's that great. Georgia, St. Louis. St. Louis, I was worried, actually, that they might not get in just because they don't have too many, great wins. And I know they only had 5 losses this season, but, the Atlantic 10, it does end up being a 2-bid league, but this year you're wondering if St. Louis kind of fell off, would they, at the end of the season a little bit, would they still be in? But they're in. Robbie Avila will get a chance against Georgia. I like St. Louis, honestly. Georgia has not impressed me all season, and Ole Miss beat them in the SEC tournament. Although Ole Miss is on a run right now, but I like St. Louis. I like St. Louis. I like the balance they have. I think Robbie Avila needs to step up for the Billikens if they want to go far. Texas Tech, Akron. Texas Tech got to watch out. They're hampered by injuries right now. Akron, really good MAC team. They won the MAC tournament. They're a dangerous team. But I think I'd still lean Texas Tech, but you could see Akron winning. Akron is in the tournament a lot. Kentucky, Santa Clara. Wouldn't that be something if Kentucky lost in the first round? Santa Clara, what a great season for them. They make the tournament as an at-large in the West Coast Conference. 3 teams out of the West Coast Conference. And they have played really well this season. I could see Kentucky losing this game. Kentucky's just been a weird team all season. I think there's a chance. I would be rooting for Santa Clara. I think there's a chance that Kentucky could end up being a first-round exit once again. But those are some of the games in the first round. And next week I'll get into the Sweet 16 matchups and everything probably. But just looking at the seeding and everything, I don't think Kansas should be seeded ahead of St. John's as a 4 seed. St. John's is a 5 seed. You can make an argument like Nebraska, should they be? I mean, St. John's I think they should be a 3 seed at least. I think that was way off with them being a 5 seed. I mean, they ran through the Big East and the Big East tournament, and Rick Pitino as head coach. I mean, come on. I think St. John's got royally screwed. And now they might, if they keep going, they might have to face Duke or a UConn again, which they wouldn't be afraid of UConn because they beat them twice. But UConn is 3 seeds ahead of them. I just don't understand that whatsoever. But nonetheless, there are some interesting matchups. Again, who do I think can win it all? I think Duke can win it all. I think St. John's can win it all. I just think it's going to be a lot tougher now as a 5 seed. I really don't think UConn can win it all. I just haven't liked what I've seen from UConn. And I just don't think they have it this year. Dan Hurley's been more angry than normal for a 2 seed. I don't understand how they're a 2 seed, honestly. Getting blown out by St. John's at the end. And they're 3 seeds ahead of St. John's. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think Florida can certainly repeat. They've been really, really good end of the season. Vanderbilt got them in the SEC tournament, but they're dangerous. I think Illinois can win it all. Illinois defensively can be good at times, and offensively they can be really good. I like their depth as well. Houston, I think, can win it all. It's going to be a lot tougher even than last year. Obviously, they were in the national championship and they fell short. And it's going to be tougher this year. They're a 2 seed this year, and which is right. They should be a 2 seed. But they got Florida, they got Illinois, Nebraska, Vanderbilt. Those are some tough teams on their side of the bracket. It'll be interesting to see how far they can go because they're really talented, but it just feels like they're a little worse than last season, and that's not going to do it in this tournament. Arizona's been really, really good. Obviously, they can win it all. I think, Wisconsin or Arkansas, you got to watch out for one of them. I think they're dangerous. I really do. Gonzaga, I don't think Gonzaga is a championship contender. They were a little goofy in the West Coast Conference this season, and I don't know, it's Graham EK, and it's a lot of other guys that you want some more out of, I think, production-wise. I just don't know if they're going to get it. Michigan certainly can win it all. They were the best team in basketball by a wide margin for a while until they lost a couple games. But I think Michigan certainly can win it all. Iowa State, I think, can win it all, but I would be really surprised if they did. there's about 5 or 6 teams that can honestly win it all for me. I mean, I think the Dukes, the Arizonas, the Michigans, the Floridas have kind of separated themselves. I think Houston's there. I think Iowa State's there. I think St. John's has the talent of a 2 seed, and they're a 5 seed. So I think St. John's is a worthy team in that mix. But I'm really looking forward to it, really excited here. It's a great time of the year. March Madness, we got the World Baseball Classic and MLB starting up soon. Stanley Cup playoffs around the corner, NBA playoffs around the corner. I've been watching NBA regular season. Everybody wants to crap on the NBA regular season. You got to watch it. You got to pick your games. There's some games that are awful. But I mean, if you're watching the Wizards and complaining about basketball, that's on you. You know, I'm watching Lakers Nuggets on Saturday night. That's a great game. You know, the Nuggets and the Thunder were playing some really good games. The Knicks have been involved in some great games recently. So I think you got to know what games to watch. But it's a great time of year. NFL draft right around the corner, a little over a month from now, in Pittsburgh, just across the river from here at Point Park. So there's a lot of stuff coming up to look forward to as we as students here are getting into the second half of the semester, which can be tricky. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to March Madness here as always. I wish Pitt was in it. I got to talk about Jeff Capel also. I got to talk about Jeff Capel. I didn't even mention that in the open. But that's a big story. I was a little surprised they brought him back. I wasn't shocked. Or in the back of my mind, I was thinking, hey, Alan Green could do the funniest thing and bring him back. It's not even the funniest thing. It's just, like, I want it to happen. I wanted him to be back. But funniest is it would cause such an uproar among most Pitt fans. But on the other side of the break here coming up, I'll talk about Capel. But I want to talk about Bruce Pearl here for just a minute here because, I mean, this guy, what a downgrade from Jay Wright to Bruce Pearl on these broadcasts. I mean, he doesn't provide much insight to me, much knowledge. You see him screaming and hollering about Auburn should be in. They were 17 and 16. Oh, we had 13 quad 1 losses. Yeah, you had 16 losses in all. You didn't even win 20 games. You're not in the you're not a tournament team. It shows how weak the bubble is. That a team like Auburn even had a chance at being, a first 4 out kind of team, and that's a great indicator and advocation for keeping the field at 68 and not expanding, because some people want to expand the field for money and for other reasons, TV ratings, whatever, more teams, but I think this is the perfect setup here, and I think it shows this year we're good on 60. We don't need 72 or 74 or 78, whatever it is. I mean, those teams that were first 4, Auburn did not deserve to make the tournament. I'm sorry, you can argue with the wall if you think Auburn should have made the tournament. 17 and 16, I don't care what schedule you played. You're a 500 team, you're a mid team. You're not a. I mean, I watched them get their butts kicked in many games this season, just outclassed. I'm watching them, that's not a tournament team. And Bruce Pearl can argue with anyone he wants to, about why Auburn 17 and 16 should be in over a 31 and 1 team, regardless of schedule. I don't care. He's not making it better, making coverage better of college basketball. And we'll see how he is here for the tournament, but it's not adding to the product, and that's not good for college basketball. So, anyway, I just want to mention that briefly, get off my chest. A lot of people are saying it, and I completely agree. I don't need to talk too much about that. But coming up on the other side of the break, I'm going to talk about Jeff Capel getting at least another year with the Pitt Panthers, and also the Steelers in their off-season, their free agency, did pretty good. Omar Khan did pretty good this past week. Sports Scoop Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM. And welcome back to the Sports Scoop Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Again, thank you all for listening in. Really appreciate it. Means a lot to me, as I am blabbing for an hour each week on WPPJ about whatever's going on in the world of sports. And so thank you to WPPJ as always for giving me this platform, this opportunity to blab and to get stuff off my chest here with regards to sports. I'm going to talk about Jeff Capel and Pitt because wow, that was a surprise for a lot of people, including myself. For me, it was kind of a pleasant surprise that Jeff Capel's brought back for another year. I think Alan Green made the right decision, the Pitt athletic director. Regardless of what Pitt fans on Twitter who watched 3 games this season are saying, it was a rough season. It really was. No other way to put it. 13-20. They made the ACC tournament. Hey, there you go. And they won a game, but they lost to NC State, who's really not great in the second round. And going into the season, I thought if everything went their way, they could fight for a tournament berth, NCAA tournament berth. But with the roster and what it looked like, you knew it was going to be an uphill battle. And you knew there wasn't that bona fide go-to guy that was going to be on this team. And there wasn't all season. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson getting hurt, or not getting hurt, but having his heart condition before the season. Before every season, there's something with Pitt that just is unfortunate. It's really unfortunate for Deshaun Jackson. I hope he's all right. I really do, because that's really scary. But he doesn't play all season, and it's heavy minutes for freshmen and Roman Cialeppa and Amari Witherspoon, who took time to learn and adapt to college basketball, right, to grow as freshmen, which is usually what you see with freshmen, other than Cam Boozer and these incredible AJ DeBance, Darren Peterson, these guys that right off the bat are just stars. Especially like Cialeppa, coming from Australia, not too much basketball experience, really a rugby player. He really has, and he still has a lot to learn in terms of the game of basketball, in terms of how he can be at his best. But it was a 6-man rotation for the most part for half the season. I don't care if it's the it's Duke's 6 best players. That's going to be tough, and that's going to weigh on you. And you're not going to be as good as you can be, and you're going to lose some games late because you're exhausted. That's what Pitt did. I mean, Pitt wasn't they weren't as bad as their record indicates for me this season. I think early on they were. I think in conference play they had Miami beat in that first game, and they lost. They had Stanford beat earlier in the regular season, and they lost that game. They're right there with Clemson, but they ran out of gas at home. And they were feisty against Duke. They were, against Virginia, they just couldn't hit any shots, but they did not get their doors blown off by any stretch. This wasn't a terrible team like a Georgia Tech or a Boston College this season, but they weren't an upper 9 ACC team by any means. And I think they had talent. I think Cam Corn, you got to give Cam Corn credit, because it was just a tough situation for him. He was thrust into being the lead guy on this team, and that's really not his thing. And he thought he would be in a tandem with Deshaun Jackson as the big man combination for Pitt, and that did not happen because obviously, like I mentioned with Deshaun Jackson, his heart condition, and was thrust into some major responsibility. DeMarco Minor had major responsibilities this season. Barry Dunning had major responsibilities, and really at the end of the season you can't say enough. I can't say enough about Barry Dunning and about Cam Corn and really about DeMarco Minor. Even though Minor didn't score very much and really didn't shoot the ball well at all the last several games of the season, his leadership and his defense on Okori against Stanford was really admirable in his fight and his dedication to Pitt basketball and to their season, in a season that was just full of pain and losses and setbacks. And so I give those guys a ton of credit. And as for Jeff Capel, look, there has the success that he probably thought would come as Pitt's head coach, and what Pitt thought would be has not materialized. They've been to the tournament one time in 8 seasons. It should have been 2. We all know that. Pitt got absolutely hosed by the committee in favor of a Virginia team that Pitt beat by 20 on the road that season, and that got their doors blown off of them against Colorado State or one of those Mountain West teams. I think it was Colorado State. And so, but even so, 2 times in 8 years is still not acceptable at a place like Pitt that has that recent history in the 2000s of being one of the better programs. And this upcoming season is going to be massive for Capel. And my argument, I support Capel coming back. I was pleasantly surprised it happened, because use that money. If you fire Capel, right, you're paying him $14 million to go away, right? So that's $14 million of NIL you can't use. Then you got to pay another coach. How much is that going to be? $8-10 million, right? And then you got to buy your roster. You got to get your transfers and everything. And so that would have left this new coach with very little to work with. The recruits probably would have all decommitted, unless it was like a slam dunk hire with massive name recognition that could somehow convince these high recruits to stay. But you keep Capel for a 9th season. I know there's not been the success that there needs to be. But you bring in this recruiting class, right? I think Anthony Felici's really good. I think all those guys are really good. Chase Foster. You try to retain. You use that NIL that you're saving by not firing Capel and buying his contract out. You invest that in a transfer class. You keep Cialeppa. You keep Witherspoon. You keep Indrositis. You bring in transfer big man, a transfer point guard, and a transfer that can hit threes, and you make the tournament next season. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen for Capel, and they're gonna give Capel all the resources here this season, upcoming. I'm really excited to see what this looks like, what this transfer class looks like. I really hope that they can keep Roman Cialeppa particularly, but also Indrositis really came into his own at the end of the season. Against NC State, he was lights out. He was lights out against Cal, against Stanford. The first time, obviously the second time against Stanford, he got hurt, played 6 minutes. But Witherspoon had a really good game against NC State, and you see signs from him. I just think he made a lot of freshman mistakes this season. I think he needs to improve his three-point shot. Certainly, he only shot 28-29%. And he needs to, when he just shoot the layup, he always turns around and fades away for a 10-foot jump shot instead of just leaning in and having a floater or just a layup. I think if he can do that, he can be really good as well. If you can keep those 3 guys, you get these 3 recruits, and you invest heavily in this transfer portal, I think Pitt can be a top-tier team in the ACC next season, honestly. Especially if these freshmen can really play well as freshmen coming in 26, 27. But for Capel, it's a make-or-break year, obviously. Again, but they got to give Capel the key to the car here. You need to give him the NIL, because if he doesn't have the NIL, no coach is going to succeed without the NIL. I don't care what coach you are. Unless you're Calipari, maybe, I don't know, but they got a bunch of NIL with Arkansas. And so I think for Jeff Capel, we've been saying this, there's been a lot of make-or-break seasons, it feels like, for Capel. It felt like this season was make-or-break, and it turns out it wasn't. But now this season is very make-or-break coming up, I think. It's like the 3rd or 4th season that's like make-or-break for Capel. But, again, I think a lot of Pitt fans, they want this team and they want this program to be better. I completely understand that. I'm with them on that 100%. And they want Capel gone. They want someone new. They want Jared Calhoun at Utah State. They want the South Florida head coach. They want Jerry McNamara from Siena. But I think this is the right decision. I think Alan Green thought about this long and hard. I think in the short term, this is really going to work out because that NIL, like I'm saying, it's so important. Use that $14 million your donors were willing to pay to buy out Capel's contract and invest it in the roster. If you have a $14 million roster next season, you're going to be good, right? You see, Kentucky has a $20 million roster. Duke was somewhere around $14 million. Arkansas was at 11, and they were really good. Maybe you don't even use 14, but $10 million or something. Invest that in this roster. If you do that, they're really, there's no excuse for Capel to not win. And then if he doesn't win, then you just fire him and his buyout's cheaper next season. I don't see any people are saying you're kicking the can down the road. Well, I want this recruiting class. I want really good players coming into Pitt. I want this NIL money to get more players transferring into Pitt to be at their best. So it's not kicking the can down the road. It's actually thinking about the situation and saying this is a make or break year for Capel in year 9, and if it works, great. And Pitt has great success next season, that's awesome. And those same fans that are very upset about Capel staying and still being the head coach next season, they'll be rejoicing because Pitt's doing well. And if he doesn't do well, then the buyout's a lot cheaper. You fire him and you find another coach and you start this thing over again. And so I think this was the wise decision for Alan Green to make, actually. And a lot of Pitt fans disagree. But again, I just laid out why I think that. I think in the short term for 2026, 2027, this is the best opportunity for Pitt to win. And I want Pitt to win next season. I don't want it in 4 years like apparently some of these Pitt fans do. Because if you fire Capel and you bring in another coach, you're not winning next season. That's just not happening. There's going to be no money to spend on players. Then you got to look at year 2 and try to build. It's just a longer process. So again, I support Alan Green's decision. I think he thought long and hard about it. Everybody thought he was going to announce Jeff Capel's been terminated. His contract's has been bought out or whatever. But I agree with the decision by Alan Green. He's getting a lot of hate, but I want to defend Alan Green. I want to defend Pitt a little bit here. But only if they invest that NIL money that they're saving by not firing him and paying his buyout. Invest that NIL money in a roster for 2026, 2027. Get a veteran point guard, maybe a really talented point guard as well. Get a big man out of the portal, pay top money, and get couple guys who can hit threes consistently, and then you're cooking, and then there's no excuse not to be a tournament team with a Cialepa coming back ideally, with an Andrusaitis, with a Witherspoon coming back, and with a top 15 recruiting class coming in. So that's my thoughts on the Capel situation. Again, the uproar was strong, especially on Twitter. Again, I know Twitter's not a real place. But just a lot of Pitt fans unhappy with the decision. But again, if you're thinking about this from a winning in 26-27 perspective, it's really a no-brainer. And I don't know about those Pitt fans, but I like to win in 2026, 2027. I like to make the tournament. I like to be a viable ACC team next season and play meaningful games in March. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm going to talk about the Penguins real quick here, and I'll close out with some Steelers, actually. And with this Penguins team, obviously, I was actually at the game against Buffalo on that Thursday night when they got their doors blown off them by the Sabres. And I was like, oh boy. There's been so many games this season where you just mostly overtime losses, but that one was one of them where you're just like, the wheels might start falling off here, because, again, nobody thought the Penguins would be in this position going into the season. They were thought of as a bottom 5 team in hockey with an aging core, very aging core of Crosby and Malkin and Letang. Letang has not been good this season, but that was kind of expected. But it turns out, the Pens are sitting here today in a playoff spot and hosting and having potentially in a 7-game series 4 home games and second place in the Metropolitan Division. So they're in a good spot right now, right, because they're in the playoffs. But you lose to Buffalo, I was thinking, oh, geez, like this. And Malkin just slashes Rasmus Dahlin in the face with the stick. He just hits him in the face with the stick. I was just like, what are we doing? He's suspended 5 games. And you're like, oh, my goodness, no Crosby, no Malkin here. These are 5 pivotal games. They have the lead against Carolina. They end up going to overtime. They had great chances in overtime. They lose in the shootout, right? They get blown out by Vegas here. And they did get the big OT win against Boston, certainly. But they lose to Philadelphia. And you're just like, oh boy. But in this Utah game, they're down 2-0 to Utah on the road without Malkin, without Crosby. It's like, how are we going to score goals here? Utah's a good team. This is maybe a tap-out moment here almost, because if they lose that game, they're tied and potentially not in playoff position. But just you can't deny the fight of this team. Brian Russ has been really strong recently. Chinakov's been great since the Penguins acquired him. That was a great move by Kyle Dubas. Stuart Skinner made some great saves to keep the Pens in it and then to keep the lead for the Pens. A huge 4-3 win. Anthony Mantha has been tremendous as well. It's a career season for him, really. This is one of the best seasons of his career. And they just don't quit. They don't quit. They lose in overtime and then particularly in the shootout a lot. Imagine if 5 of those games were wins. That's 5 more points. You're closer to Carolina in first in the Metro than Columbus and New York in the wild card picture. And so it's just really unfortunate. That could do the Pens in. We don't know. It's very volatile right now. As of now, like I mentioned, the Penguins are in. I know they play at the Avalanche tonight, so that could be bad. But I think Malkin's back. We're waiting for 87 to come back. But it's a brutal schedule. They're halfway through the month, though, trying to get through it here. And we'll just have to see. But that was a huge win against Utah to kind of stabilize things, to get some confidence in the team. Just a great performance by the Pens, especially in the second and third periods. And Stuart Skinner at the end was just tremendous. Made huge saves, too. Because if that game went to overtime, you're like, oh, we're getting 1 point instead of 2. Because that's just how it is with the Penguins this season. So great job by the Penguins. We'll see how they navigate the schedule coming up. I know they play Carolina again on the road. I think they end the road trip in Carolina like they started it. But I know they have Colorado on the road tonight. Colorado's been great this season. That's on ESPN. And let's see here. Yeah, they're at Carolina after that. Jets at home, then they play Carolina again. Then the Avalanche at home. It's just brutal. At Ottawa, which the Penguins never play well in Ottawa. The Stars, who are really good. At New York, the Islanders, which is a pivotal game. The Red Wings. There's just really no let-up. And in April, it's at Tampa. It's against the Panthers twice, who are going to be fighting for their playoff lives. At New Jersey. New Jersey's always a tough place to win. Capitals twice. At St. Louis. So it just doesn't get easier, really, for the Penguins. You could say it lightens up a little bit, but those are going to be some high-pressure games. But again, if the Pens win half of them, and they get maybe a couple more than half, and if they get to 100 points, I think they're all right. That's usually kind of a cutoff. But will they and can they? I think they can, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So we will just have to see with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I'm just really excited, just watching these games. Penguins in a playoff race. We haven't seen that in a few years, and so it's good to see. It's high pressure hockey. Hockey and soccer, at the end, and you could say really every sport at the end, but like it just feels like hockey is so much going on. Like soccer just feels like, when you're in the 90th minute, 91st minute, and you're trying to hold on to a lead or you're trying to keep a draw, like it's just so much pressure. You just feel that just passing it around. Like hockey, like you're passing the puck around, and then you're taking shots. You're trying to clear it out of the zone, trying to get an empty net. It's just everything. It's really stressful, but it's really exciting at the same time. So looking forward to seeing the Penguins hopefully do well here in this stretch to end the season. They've done okay so far here coming out of this winter break, Olympic break, but they're going to need some big wins here to keep their playoff hopes alive. So going to take another break here, final break. Before I wrap up, I'm going to talk Steelers for 10 or so minutes, and I'm going to give praise to Omar Khan and for the returns so far in free agency for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM. And welcome back to the Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening in. Covering a lot of bases here on this edition of the Sports Scoop. So thank you everyone for, again, listening in. Thank you to WPPJ again for the opportunity for me to blab and just talk about sports for an hour. So want to talk about your Pittsburgh Steelers. Free agency opened this past week. I think it was a Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday. And I like it in the NFL free agency. You can teams just get after it right off the bat. MLB, it's just such a drag. We're waiting for this player to sign, and then when this player signs, the dominoes are going to start falling. Everyone's going to sign, and then you're waiting again. Oh, actually, no. When this player signs, everyone's going to start signing, and it really never. I mean, it's a months-long voyage. I don't even know of MLB free agency. NFL and NBA really too. It's kind of right off the bat. NFL, a lot of the players are signed that day. The Steelers and Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, they got to work on Tuesday. Obviously, right off the bat, Alec Pierce signs a big deal with Indy. Indy can't keep Michael Pittman as well with that money. They chose Pierce over Pittman. And so the Steelers trade for Pittman. And it's really just a kind of a pick swap because the Colts were shedding salary. It was really a salary dump. Then the Steelers give Pittman a 3-year, $59 million extension. Again, that I love that move. I thought that was a great move by Omar Khan. Pittman is a really solid receiver. Again, you're hoping if it's an Aaron Rodgers or whoever, it's a more stable quarterback situation. Pittman's had a ton of quarterbacks in his career, and he's done well with all of them. He's done well. He's produced regardless of the situation. I think he's a really, really good receiver. I think he's one of the better number 2 receivers in the league now. And I think the Steelers, if you draft a 21 a receiver, a Jordan Tyson or whoever, I think you're really set up. And that receiver room, which was such a weakness beyond DK Metcalf in 2025, becomes a huge strength for your team and for your offense. To pair with a Freiermuth and a Darnell Washington at the tight end position, and a Jaylen Warren, and now a Rico Dowdle, who I'll get into as well. I think it was a great move by Omar Khan. I think the contract is very team-friendly. I mean, that's like $20 million a year for a really good, obviously $20 million a year for a wide receiver too, but he's better. He's a wide receiver 1 for many teams in this league. So I thought that was a great move by Omar Khan. Again, I like Calvin Austin. A lot of people are like, why are some of the Steeler fans all sentimental about Calvin Austin going? Because, he gave it his all. He had some big plays with the Steelers. Obviously that touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown against Baltimore, just a little bit ago. And I thought, he battled injuries. He's a little guy, and he gave it his all for the Steelers. I thought if they could get him for cheap, he could be a depth wide receiver piece for the Steelers still. But you get Michael Pittman here. Again, I don't see a downside. I don't see a downside contract-wise. I think it was a very fair contract. Team-friendly contract, you could argue. I think it's a bona fide receiver that you're adding, a big receiver, a big play receiver that'll go up and make contested catches. He's more of an underneath and intermediate route runner. And that'll be something the Steelers have to look at because DK Metcalf last season was really a very underneath receiver who caught a lot of passes 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, like in stride, and didn't have too many deep balls thrown to him. We'll see what the Steelers, if they change their approach and they get more deep balls to DK Metcalf, if they can continue to improve this offensive line. For an Aaron Rodgers, assuming Aaron Rodgers comes back, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. The assumption in Pittsburgh in 2026. And again, the Steelers were looking to draft a receiver pretty high as well, maybe two, before the Pittman acquisition. I think you could still draft a receiver high, make that a huge position of strength, and make it really easy for Aaron Rodgers, whoever the Steelers quarterback is in 2026, a lot easier than in 2025 and in years past. So I love the Pittman acquisition. Jamel Dean, I think, is a great acquisition at the corner spot. Him and Porter as the starters. That looks really good now. I was tough on Joey Porter Jr. last season, in 2024, and in 2025 to start the season because he was still grabbing and he wasn't winning routes against receivers much at all. And he really turned a corner the second half of 2025, and he became a star player, honestly. And so he's going to get paid, you'd assume, this offseason, and that's deserved. Jamel Dean, he's under 30 still. He was the third best corner in football by Pro Football Focus. So take that as you will. Pro Football Focus, to me, isn't always the most accurate in terms of evaluating players with their grading and everything. But, hey, that's a very positive sign for Jamel Dean. I think that's a really good acquisition. You bring Asante Samuel Jr. back for some depth. So you have that cornerback depth. And then at safety, you bring in Brisker. You're getting Deshaun Elliott back, right? You have some depth with Chuck Clark, and the name's escaping me here. The other safety for the Steelers. Kyle Duggar. So you got that depth at safety. So the question is, Jalen Ramsey has a big contract. Do you cut Ramsey? Do you trade Ramsey? Or do you just move him back to corner for depth? Like, what do you do with Ramsey now? Because, Elliott and Brisker and Kyle Duggar, you can work with that, I think, at the safety position. So I don't think Brisker's, he signed for $5.5 million or a 1-year deal. He's not a great player. He was a starter for the Bears, and he made plays for the Bears on defense. For a team that needed some plays made, he made some plays. Do I think he's a great player? No, I don't. I think he's a solid player that can contribute to the Steelers. Obviously a hometown kid, went to Gateway, went to Penn State, so there's that familiarity there as well. So I think that was a great addition at that price for the Steelers. And then Rico Dowdle, who has been really productive, multiple consecutive 1,000-plus yard rushing seasons, more of a traditional back compared to a Kenneth Gainwell. Again, if you could pick Kenneth Gainwell or Rico Dowdle, it's kind of tough because Gainwell did so much in the passing game and didn't do as much in the running game. But Rico Dowdle was all running and isn't really a pass catcher. I think the Steelers are okay with how that worked out. Dowdle actually got less than Gainwell just a little bit. And you look at Rico Dowdle's numbers compared to Kenneth Walker, who signed 3 years, $45 million with the Chiefs. He got $30 million more than Dowdle, and a lot more, $10 million more basically almost, in average annual value of the contract. And you look at their numbers, and they're strikingly similar. Rico Dowdle and Kenneth Walker. But Kenneth Walker in the playoffs, you were watching him do great stuff, and obviously in the Super Bowl. But I think the Steelers did well at that price for Rico Dowdle. Would have loved to see Kenny G back with the Steelers. I loved his contributions. He had so many big plays for the team in 2025, but he goes to Tampa. Danny Smith's in Tampa. Miles Killebrew's now in Tampa. There's a little bit of a Steelers thing going on in Tampa now. And hopefully Kenny G has some success and Tampa has some success, because he was just great for the Steelers last season. But I think the Steelers will take Rico Dowdle, who, now the concern for me is Dowdle had like 4 games where he like kind of went off, and the rest of the games is a lot of like 15 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards rushing. You'd like to see a little bit more consistency there in that game. But again, it's Carolina. There's a lot of predictability with their offense at times in terms of running the football. And their O-line could have been a little better, I guess. I mean, it was all right for Carolina. But I think Rico Dowdle's a really good addition. And him and Warren as a tandem again. The Steelers like these running back tandems with Jaylen Warren. I think that's nothing but positive stuff. So, good stuff by Omar Khan. We'll see what else the Steelers do, if they do much more else. Obviously, they're probably going to sign Rodgers at some point, you'd think. I don't know. That's like the consensus right now, but we will just have to see. But that'll do it for the Sports Scoop this week. Thank you, everyone, for listening in once again. I'll be back next week to talk more March Madness, more Pens probably, and a lot more sports. So thank you, everyone, for listening in. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week. And I'll see you next week. Sports Scuba Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM.